Today we will talk about user management in TaxWorkFlow. TaxWorkFlow enables you to have many users working under your corporate account at the same time. Every user has their own permissions, has their own login and password into the system, and you can create or delete users anytime at will. We do not have any limitations of how many users there could be in your database. You have unlimited user count that you can take advantage of during the tax season to add as many additional extra temporary workers to the system and then remove them at the end of the tax season. The user management is available to administrators and managers. And in order to see your user base, you go to Administration View Users. In my database, I have 4 users, and I'm currently logged in as support, which is designated by that green icon in here. And I can obviously manage permissions for other users or for myself. Let me take you in this demo through a simple scenario of adding a new user. We will discuss other aspects of user management later in a separate demo. In order to create a new user, you use the Create New User button and fill out the information here. So the first name, the last name, the title, and the email address. The user login matches up with the user email, but you can change that to be something separate, especially if multiple users have the same email address. You need to have a unique login. So you can change for each user the login to be different from an email address, but by default it's an email address so that you don't have to type it and waste more time setting up the user than necessary. The password is filled out automatically. We use random strings, symbols, and characters to generate a password for the user. Most of the time, users don't have to enter this complicated password because TaxWorkFlow works like Outlook. It will remember your credentials in your computer memory like Outlook under your registry settings under your Windows account. But you can make the password a little simpler, and you can force people to put in their login as well as password when they start up with TaxWorkFlow. So there are different options available for you to decide whether you do want to automatically sign in the users or have them enter either the password or both login and password at the same time. The other settings in the new user account are contact information for the user. It's not mandatory, but this information is used in the email templates. And also you can manage user base by office. You can create multiple offices and assign users to different offices. That will give you a better way of managing workload across the office if you have a lot of employees. The roles sidebar designates what types of permissions and what types of an extra behavior options this new user account will have. The basic role in the system is a user role. A user is a person who can respond to tasks and projects that have been assigned to him or her as an assignee. A user can create their own tasks and projects and manage them, but a simple user cannot change anybody else's projects or tasks. They can only view them as a read-only in a read-only mode. In order for a user to be able to manage other people, they have to have a manager role. So the manager can go into everybody else's lists of tasks and projects, reassign the work, change the deadlines, complete on behalf of the other user some tasks or projects, and so forth. So again, bottom line, a simple user just does the work, and the manager manages the work for other users. So it's very simple and straightforward permission that is covering most of your in-house roles and responsibilities anyway. The administrator role is a role that is used to set up the tax workflow initially. The administrator of the system has all permissions to do anything in the system. So really use this role with caution when you assign this role to a new user. The administrator role should be given to a user who will be initially setting up TaxWorkFlow or continue to maintain different types of templates. So the administrator can set up email templates, workflow templates, different rules for triggering problems, for example, and so forth. So administrator takes care of items that are template driven or rules driven, and whatever he does or she does, it is usually done on a one-time basis as initial system setup or some incremental changes. You continue to use TaxWorkFlow, and these changes are propagated to manager and user and everybody else in the system. So for example, the manager will use the workflow templates that was created by administrator, and the manager will not be able to modify this template, but he will be able to create a project based on this template or create an email based on the template. There are two other roles, billing role and work time role. A work time role gives you the ability to enter your own work time, but you will not be able to modify or view everybody else's work times. So you will be just populating the work time for yourself. The billing role, however, gives you the ability to manage everybody else's work times as well as create invoices, transfer different line items into the invoices, such as fixed fee services or work times from other users as well. And a billing person can change somebody else's work times too. So the billing personnel is in charge of the billings, and the work time personnel can only enter work time associated with themselves only. There are some advanced options, such as the first option is to allow other users complete or reassign this user's projects and tasks. That's an interesting option, which is kind of a band-aid to the permissioning system, which gives you the ability to create what we call a public or dummy users. For example, front office or back burner or printer. You may have a user who does not have a face, who really is a certain responsibility in your office, such as the front office. There could be different people in the front office servicing incoming clients, and so you may just create a dummy user called front office and have everybody else being able to see what their pipeline of existing tasks or projects is and reassign these tasks or projects to themselves, even if they don't have the manager role. So if I'm not a manager, normally I can't reassign anything to myself, or I can't complete anything from other people. But if one person has this option checked for his user account, meaning that that person is a public person, I can, for that particular user, change tasks or projects or complete them or reassign them to me. It is used to organize a queue of tasks that are not really assigned to any real person, but it's like a first in, first out queue, right? So it just accumulates a pile of work that other people in your office will be able to take over as they are available. And this could be very helpful to organize some of the work that doesn't have to be completed by a given person. Anybody can do it. That's why you kind of pile it under this particular public user account. The second option is totally opposite to the first one. It's used when you hire a trainee or a temporary worker and you don't want them to complete any tasks, even their own, so that they do not mess up the workflow yet, because they don't know what they're doing, for example, or you don't want them to be able to make any permanent changes to the sequence of tasks and projects that you are working on. So this option is more or less like a paranoid check. You don't want a certain user to be like a decision maker on anything that you do in your office. In this case, you would use this option. The final option, subscribe this user to automatic projects and tasks notifications, allows you to notify this user about anything that was assigned to him or her, or any changes to the tasks or projects that are associated with this person. So for example, if a new project is created or a new task is created or the deadline is changed and you would like to have this user notified, this option is used when the user is working remotely and doesn't use TaxWorkFlow too much on a daily basis. That is why you kind of notify by email saying, hey, you know what, there is a new task assigned to you. Can you please review, and start working on it? But if you are using TaxWorkFlow on a daily basis, you don't need this option to be checked, because you will see everything that happens, everything that assigns to you, or everything that is reassigned, any change deadlines or anything of that matter. All the stuff that is done as a team, you will be able to see in the relevant windows in TaxWorkFlow. You don't need any extra email notifications telling you whatever you already see on your screen. So bottom line, subscribe this user to automatic projects and tasks notifications. Use it only for external people who are seldomly logging into TaxWorkFlow, but uncheck this option for regular users who are working with TaxWorkFlow on a daily basis. That will simply minimize the amount of spam.